Imagine discovering shocking truths and facing unexpected twists in your life. If you're ready for a story of heartbreak, personal growth, and new beginnings, you're in the right place. Smash that like button, share this with your friends, and hit subscribe to join me on this incredible journey. Your support makes all the difference. My jealous ex blamed me for cheating and lied about being pregnant to trap me, but it turned out she was the one cheating and the baby wasn't mine. I'm a 28-year-old man who has recently encountered some serious personal turmoil. About 2 to 3 months ago, my ex-girlfriend, Sarah, not her real name, who was 26, and I went through a particularly bitter breakup. We had been together for 2 years, but the relationship had been on shaky ground for some time. Now, Sarah has just revealed something shocking, and I'm struggling to figure out how to deal with it. To give you some context, Sarah and I met at a party through mutual friends. We connected instantly, and for the first year, everything seemed perfect. We shared common interests, enjoyed each other's company, and even discussed our future together. I'm a software engineer, and Sarah works as a graphic. Despite our demanding careers, we always Initially, our time together felt like a romantic comedy, spontaneous weekend getaways, dining at new restaurants, and lazy Sundays spent binge watching our favorite TV. Our families were introduced early on, and the interactions were positive. My parents adored her, and her parents seemed to like me as well. However, over time, small cracks began. Sarah started commenting on friendships with female colleagues. At first, I dismissed these concerns as typical relationships, but the situation deteriorated rapidly. Sarah grew increasingly jealous and possessive, troubled by any time I spent with female, even in group settings. She began snooping on my phone, interrogating me about every message and call. I made every effort to reassure Sarah, but attempts seemed futile. One evening, I planned to dine out with my best Mike and his girlfriend, and Sarah was meant to join us. Unfortunately, she canceled at the last minute due to work. That night, she saw a Snapchat posted by a mutual friend who happened to be at the same restaurant. Misunderstanding the situation, she called me in tears, accusing me of lying about my company. It took hours to soothe her fears and convince her of my fidelity. The situation escalated when I undertook a significant project at work, requiring me to work late frequently. My team included several women, which only fueled Sarah's insecurities. She would call me incessantly throughout the day, make unexpected visits to my office, and even began tracking my movements. Desperate to ease her concerns, I invited her to meet my colleagues, shared my live location, and even contemplated leaving the project. Nevertheless, her distrust persisted. The breaking point arrived when she accused me of having an affair with a coworker named Emily, with whom I had been collaborating closely to meet project deadlines. One evening, as Emily and I were the last ones in the office working on a presentation, Sarah stormed into the conference. Overwhelmed by jealousy, she verbally attacked Emily, accusing her of attempting to seduce me and hurled insults at her. The confrontation escalated rapidly. Sarah threw a potted plant towards me, which narrowly missed, and amidst her hysterics, security had to intervene and escort her out. The following day, I found myself explaining the ordeal to my boss. He was sympathetic, but made it clear such disruptions could not recur. Emily remained professional, yet the dynamics between us turned noticeably strained. Additionally, the incident altered how some colleagues perceived me, casting me as the one with the unstable girlfriend. After that chaotic incident, I decided I couldn't stay in the relationship any longer. I took a day off from work and visited Sarah's apartment to end things. I explained that her constant mistrust and accusations were overwhelming me. I told her that her actions were damaging not only our relationship, but also my professional life and friendships. She reacted very badly. There was a lot of shouting, tears, and harsh words. She accused me of never truly loving her, of using her, and of being unfaithful throughout our relationship. She even threw some of my belongings out of her apartment window. It was a dreadful scene. As I left, she threatened to make me regret breaking up with her. At the time, I didn't take her threats seriously, thinking she was just speaking out of anger. I was mostly relieved to be free from the relationship. Over the following weeks, Sarah tried repeatedly to reach out. She called, texted, and even appeared at places she knew I'd be. Her messages varied from begging for another chance to threatening to expose me as a cheater to everyone. I blocked her number and all her social media accounts, and eventually she stopped trying to contact me. I spent the next few weeks focusing on myself. I immersed myself in work, went to the gym more often, and rekindled friendships I had neglected while I was with Sarah. Life was beginning to feel normal again. Then, last Friday night happened. I was enjoying a quiet evening at home, had ordered pizza, opened a beer, and was about to watch a movie When someone knocked on my door, it was unexpected and I felt a bit uneasy. When I opened the door, there stood Sarah. She looked pale and as if she hadn't slept much. Before I could respond, Sarah urgently announced, "I'm pregnant and it's yours." I was completely stunned. Doubt was my initial reaction. We had always been cautious, and given our tumultuous breakup, I couldn't shake the feeling that this might be a tactic to draw me back. I asked about the pregnancy timeline, and she mentioned she was about 2 months along. That meant the conception could have occurred while we were still together, although our relationship was already faltering. I struggled to pinpoint the last time we were intimate, as my memories of that period were muddled by constant conflicts. Shocked, I invited her inside. We settled in the living room, where I inquired about how she discovered her pregnancy and the confirmation method. She explained she had missed her period and taken a home pregnancy test, which led her to consult a doctor for verification. I expressed needing time to digest the news. After offering her a glass of water, I stepped into the kitchen to gather my thoughts. Upon returning, I caught Sarah looking through my phone, which I had inadvertently left on the coffee table. "What the hell are you doing?" I exclaimed. Startled, she dropped my phone. "I was just checking the time," she claimed, but it was evident she was snooping. Frustrated, I confronted her. "You're snooping just like you used to." The old issues resurfaced, and I insisted on proof. I requested a paternity test, which upset her. She argued I should trust her, ironically highlighting our past trust issues. "After all we've been through, you know I wouldn't lie about this," she said tearfully. However, I recalled numerous baseless accusations from her in the past. I could not take her word at face value without factual proof. Given our rocky history and her previous behavior, I stood firm on needing verifiable evidence. I told her we could only discuss this further if she provided medical proof of her pregnancy and consented to a paternity test. This infuriated. She lashed out, calling me a coward for not accepting responsibility without question. After our confrontation, Sarah threatened to tell our mutual friends and my family that I was deserting her and the child she claims is mine. She left abruptly, slamming the door as she went. Since that day, I felt completely off balance. My concentration at work has dropped, sleep escapes me, and I'm constantly anxious. Part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid. What if she is telling the truth about being pregnant? However, another part of me suspects that she might be using this as a manipulation tactic. I've poured hours into researching false pregnancy claims and understanding paternity rights. I've thought about talking to Sarah again, but every time the idea comes up, I'm reminded of the toxicity of our past relationship and the relief I've felt since we parted ways. I haven't shared this situation with anyone, not with my family, not even with my closest friend, Mike. I'm torn about how to proceed. Am I wrong for doubting her and insisting on proof? Could I have handled this differently? I keep going over our conversation, wondering if I overlooked some sign. Sure. Sarah looked worn out, tired and stressed, but could that just be from the stress of our breakup? And why did she wait 2 months to tell me? If her claim is true, she should have known earlier. The threat of her telling everyone also weighs heavily on me. My parents would be devastated if they believed I had abandoned a pregnant ex. And my friends, how would they see me? I pride myself on being reliable, and the thought of being seen as a neglectful father-to-be is deeply troubling. At the same time, I can't just blindly accept Sarah's claim. Her previous actions have eroded my trust, and the responsibility of potentially bringing a child into the world is immense, a responsibility I'm not sure we're prepared for, especially with our relationship in its current state. I've considered consulting some of our mutual friends for any insights, but I'm hesitant. I fear starting a rumor mill before I fully understand the situation. What if Sarah hasn't shared this with anyone else? I don't want to be the one who spreads potentially false information. Part of me is also deeply scared that her claim could be true. I'm not ready to be a father. While Sarah and I had discussed children as a distant future possibility, we never considered it as an immediate reality. The idea of being permanently connected to Sarah, given the toxicity of our past relationship, is daunting. I've even doubted the paternity of the child, if she is indeed pregnant. Her constant accusations about my loyalty make me wonder if she was projecting her own guilt. Could she have been unfaithful? It's a distressing thought, but I find myself needing to consider all possibilities. The more I dwell on the situation, the more confused and frustrated I become. It feels like I'm trapped with no appealing choices. If I reach out to Sarah for more details, am I exposing myself to further manipulation? If I distance myself, am I neglecting a potential responsibility to my child? I know I need to act, but I'm stuck, paralyzed by my inability to decide. Each choice I face seems laden with risk. I find myself hoping that Sarah will contact me again, perhaps with more information or finally agreeing to provide the proof I've asked for, but all I've encountered so far is silence. A part of me wants to just give in to her demands to maintain harmony, yet I'm aware that isn't the correct path. If a child is indeed involved, they deserve parents who are certain and engaged, not just someone acquiescing to avoid disputes. I've even pondered obtaining legal counsel, but that seems like a significant escalation. What if this situation is just a misunderstanding or a scare? Would calling in lawyers be an excessive reaction at this point? Reflecting on this has made me reassess our relationship. Did I miss crucial signs? Were there warning flags that I dismissed? I thought I was doing well by trying to placate her and affirm my fidelity, but in retrospect, was I just perpetuating her distrustful behavior? Perhaps I should have concluded our relationship soon. It's been a week since Sarah last confronted me, and I'm no clear. Time is pressing. If she is pregnant, some decisions need to be made quickly, but how can any decision be made when the essential truths remain? I find myself constantly questioning, was it wrong to demand proof? Should I have been more understanding, more trusting, or is my caution justified given what I'm at a loss. Now, I'm reaching out online for guidance. It's a tangled situation, and maybe I haven't shared enough for you to fully understand, but I'm desperate for advice. I need some outside opinions. Am I wrong for doubting my ex-girlfriend and demanding proof of her pregnancy? Or is my caution justified given what we've been through? What would you do in my shoes? Update. It's been 3 weeks since my first post, and a lot has changed. I want to update everyone on the situation with Sarah and her pregnancy claim. First, thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. Your insights really helped me see things more clearly. Many of you advised that I should hold firm and demand proof, while others reminded me to brace myself for the possibility that Sarah could indeed be pregnant. After a few days without contact following our confrontation, Sarah texted me. She apologized for her earlier outburst and acknowledged my reasons for doubt. She agreed to provide medical proof of the pregnancy and consented to a paternity test when it's appropriate. I was relieved she was taking a more reasonable stance, though I remained cautious. We decided to meet at a local coffee shop to discuss everything. I chose a public setting to avoid any drama and to keep our conversation respectful. When we met, Sarah appeared different from the last time I saw her. She was more composed and seemed to have a calmer demeanor. She handed me an envelope with ultrasound images and a doctor's report confirming her pregnancy. The documents confirmed she was about 10 weeks pregnant, matching the timeline she had previously mentioned. The sight of those ultrasound images stirred a whirlwind of emotions in me. It seemed more real than ever. We spent hours talking. Sarah shared that she had discovered the pregnancy just a week before visiting me. Sarah confessed that she was frightened and unsure how to break the news to me, especially considering how our relationship had ended. She acknowledged that her method of showing up unannounced and making demands was inappropriate, and she apologized. I listened, keeping an open mind, and shared my perspective as well. Her past behavior had eroded my trust, and her sudden announcement had caught me completely off guard. We explored our options together. Sarah expressed her desire to keep the baby, but understood if I wasn't ready to embrace fatherhood. She assured me she wouldn't force me into anything, but hoped I would choose to be involved in the child's life. I told her I needed time to think it all over. We agreed the paternity test was necessary and decided to proceed with a non-invasive prenatal paternity test, which is safe to perform after the 7th week of pregnancy. We chose to wait until the 12th week to ensure safety. After our conversation, I felt slightly more at ease, but still overwhelmed by the magnitude of the situation. I realized it was time to inform my family and close friends. I started with my parents. They were utterly surprised. My mother was caught between her excitement about potentially becoming a grandmother and her worries about the circumstances surrounding the pregnancy. My father was more cautious, reminding me of the unstable nature of my relationship with Sarah. Both advised me to proceed with the paternity test and to tread carefully. Next, I confided in my best friend, Mike. He was taken aback but immediately supportive, offering to stand by me regardless of what I decided. He also recommended consulting a lawyer to clarify my legal rights and responsibilities. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and I maintained contact through text. Sarah regularly updated me about her doctor visits and how she was feeling. It felt odd to navigate this new relationship dynamic given our complicated past. Then, about a week ago, something unexpected happened. Sarah called me, sounding very worried. She told me she was bleeding and on her way to the hospital. I didn't hesitate. I went straight to meet her there. The following hours were filled with tests, anxious waiting, and discussions with the medical staff. Eventually, we learned that Sarah had a miscarriage. The doctor told us that miscarriages are sadly common in early pregnancies and reassured us it was no one's fault. I was overwhelmed. I hadn't fully grasped the reality of becoming a dad, and suddenly that possibility was gone. Sarah was crushed by the loss. Despite our past difficulties, seeing her in so much distress was deeply moving. I stayed by her side until she was released from the hospital. We drove back to her apartment in silence. Once there, Sarah let her emotions out. She apologized for how she had acted initially, admitting she was scared and unsure how to handle the situation. She recognized that her previous behavior, her jealousy and accusations, was wrong, and the miscarriage made her see just how much she had hurt. I listened to her, feeling a whirlwind of emotion. I felt sadness for the potential life that was lost, even though I was unsure about fatherhood. I also felt a sense of relief, which then guilt. And amidst all this, I still had a nagging doubt about the authenticity of the entire situation. I asked Sarah if she had shared the news of the pregnancy with anyone else. She said she hadn't told anyone else, as she was waiting to get past the first trimester before telling her family and friends. So now only my parents, Mike, and I knew about the whole situation. We talked for hours that night about the pregnancy, about our failed relationship, and about where we go from here. Sarah said she was going to start therapy to work on her trust issues and jealousy. She didn't ask to get back together or try to manipulate the situation, which I appreciated. I told her I needed some time and space to process everything that had happened. She understood and agreed that it was probably for the best if we didn't see each other for a while. As I left her apartment that night, I felt drained, but also somewhat relieved. The roller coaster of emotions over the past few weeks had been exhausting. Now, a week later, I'm still trying to make sense of everything that happened. I've been seeing a therapist to help me work through my feelings about the whole situation. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to talk to. I've also been doing a lot of thinking about my relationship with Sarah and my own behavior. I still believe I was right to ask for proof of the pregnancy, but I've realized that there were times in our relationship where I could have communicated better or been more understanding of her insecurity. Sarah and I have texted a few times since that night. She's been going to therapy and says it's helping her understand her behavior better. She's apologized again for how she treated me during our relationship and for how she handled the pregnancy news. I'm not sure what the future holds for us. I don't think we'll ever get back together romantically. Too much has happened, and I think we're better off apart. But I'm open to the possibility of eventually developing a friendship once we've both had time to heal, grow. Regarding whether the pregnancy was real or not, I honestly don't know. The medical documents look legitimate, and the doctors at the hospital confirmed that Sarah still, given our history, a part of me can't help. For my own peace of mind, I've decided to accept that it was real and move on from there. This experience has taught me a lot about communication, trust, and how past actions can leave lasting marks on relationships. I'm trying to take these lessons and use them to become a better person and partner in the future. Throughout this ordeal, my parents and Mike have been incredibly supportive. They listened when I needed to talk, offered advice when I asked, and just stayed by my side. I'm grateful to have such a strong support system. Looking back at my original post, I can see how shocked and confused I was. I still believe I was right to ask for proof, but I also get why Sarah reacted the way she did at first. Fear and hormones can make people act in ways they normally wouldn't. For those who asked in the comments of my original post, no, I haven't told any of our mutual friends about what happened. Sarah and I agreed that it was a private matter, and sharing it would only create unnecessary drama and gossip. As for work, things have thankfully settled down. The awkwardness with Emily and my other coworkers has mostly faded. I've thrown myself into my projects, which has been a welcome distraction from everything else going on in my life. I know this update might not be what some of you were expecting. Life rarely plays out the way we expect. It's messy, complicated, and often leaves us with more questions than answers. I'm still trying to process everything that's happened, and I know it will take time before I can fully come to terms with it all. But I'm taking things one day at a time, focusing on my own growth and healing. Thank you all again for your advice and support. It really helped me navigate this difficult situation. If anything significant changes, I'll be sure to post another update. For now, I'm just trying to move forward, learn from this experience, and focus on building a better future for myself. Update 2. I wanted to end my story with the last update. It felt like a decent place to leave things, but life doesn't always cooperate. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and I'm still angry about everything. I thought the situation with Sarah couldn't get any more complicated, but I was wrong, so wrong. After the miscarriage, Sarah and I barely kept. We text occasionally, mostly her updating me on her therapy progress and me responding politely. I was still processing everything and trying to move on with my life. Work was going well. I had thrown myself into a new project, which was a welcome distraction. Things with my coworkers, including Emily, had pretty much returned to normal. I was even starting to think about dating again, though I hadn't actually gone on any dates yet. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a man's voice asked if I was your name. When I confirmed, he introduced himself as Robert and said we needed to talk about Sarah. My heart sank. I asked him who he was, and he said he was Sarah's ex-boyfriend. They had dated for a few weeks during a time when Sarah and I were on a break. I remember that break. It was after a particularly bad fight, and we had been apart for about 2 months. Robert told me he recently found out about the pregnancy and miscarriage from Sarah, and he had something to tell me. We arranged to meet at a local bar the next evening. The next 24 hours were filled with anxiety, my mind spinning with possibilities. Part of me didn't want to go, didn't want to hear whatever Robert had to say, but I knew I had. When I met Robert at the bar, I was surprised by how normal he seemed. He was about my age, seemed like an average guy. He bought us both a beer and got straight to the point. Sarah lied to you, he said. The baby wasn't yours. It was mine. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Robert explained that he and Sarah had been seeing each other on and off even after she and I got back together. The last time they were together was about a week before Sarah and I broke up for good. Robert showed me text messages between him and Sarah going back months. In them, Sarah talked about how unhappy she was with me and how she was only staying because she was afraid of being alone. There were messages from when she found out she was pregnant, panicking about what to do. As I scrolled through the messages, feeling more and more sick, I found one that made me furious. It was from Sarah to Robert, just a few days before she came to my door claiming to be pregnant with my child. I have a plan. I'm going to tell your name. The baby is his. He makes good money and he's always wanted kids. He'll take care of. Couldn't believe what I was reading. Not only had she cheated on me, she had tried to trap me into rape. Robert said he felt guilty and thought I deserved to know the truth. I thanked Robert for telling me, though part of me wished I could go back to not knowing. My heart sank. I asked him who he was, and he said he was Sarah's ex-boyfriend. They had dated for a few weeks during a time when Sarah and I were on a break. I remember that break. It was after a particularly bad fight, and we had been apart for about 2 months. Robert told me he recently found out about the pregnancy and miscarriage from Sarah, and he had something to tell me. We arranged to meet at a local bar the next evening. The next 24 hours were filled with anxiety, my mind spinning with possibilities. Part of me didn't want to go, didn't want to hear whatever Robert had to say, but I knew I had to face it. When I met Robert at the bar, I was surprised by how normal he seemed. He was about my age, seemed like an average guy. He bought us both a beer and got straight to the point. Sarah lied to you, he said. The baby wasn't yours, it was mine. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Robert explained that he and Sarah had been seeing each other on and off even after she and I got back together. The last time they were together was about a week before Sarah and I broke up for good. Robert showed me text messages between him and Sarah going back months. In them, Sarah talked about how unhappy she was with me, how she was only staying because she was afraid of being alone. There were messages from when she found out she was pregnant, panicking about what to do. As I scrolled through the messages, feeling more and more sick, I found one that made me furious. It was from Sarah to Robert, just a few days before she came to my door claiming to be pregnant with my child. I have a plan. The message read, I'm going to tell your name. The baby is his. He makes good money and he's always wanted kids. He'll take care of us. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Not only had she cheated on me, but she had tried to trap me into raising another man's child. Robert said he felt guilty after the miss and thought I deserved to know the truth. I thanked Robert for telling me, though part of me wished I could go back to not knowing. She tried to explain herself, saying she had been scared and desperate. She thought that if I accepted the baby as mine, everything would somehow fall into. I told her that what she did was beyond forgiveness. Not only had she shattered my trust, but she was also willing to involve an innocent child in her web of lies. Sarah pleaded for another chance, saying she would do anything to fix, but I knew there was no fixing that. The damage was done, and the trust we once had was gone forever. I told her I didn't want to see or hear from her again. I suggested she continue therapy, because it was clear she needed help. Then stood up and walked out, ignoring her desperate calls for me to stay and talk. The following days were a whirlwind. I shared what had happened with my parents and Mike. They were outraged on my behalf. My mom even wanted to confront Sarah, but I asked her not. I just wanted to move on from all. I also decided to inform a few mutual friends. I knew Sarah might try to twist the story, so I wanted to get ahead of it. I didn't go into all the details, just told them that Sarah had cheated and lied about the pregnancy. Most of them were completely unaware of the situation and were shocked and supportive. One friend, however, admitted that she had suspected Sarah might be unfaithful. She had seen Sarah with another guy a few times, but wasn't sure if it was serious. She apologized for not telling me sooner. While it hurt to know she hadn't said anything, I understood why she didn't want to get involved. At work, I decided it was time to tell Emily the full story. She listened with understanding and support, something I really needed. She even confessed that she always had a sense that something wasn't quite right with Sarah, but didn't want to interfere in my relationship. This whole experience has brought Emily and me closer, and I'm beginning to view her differently. Who knows, maybe something more could develop between us down the line. As for Sarah, I haven't heard a word from her since our last encounter at the coffee. I've cut off all contact, blocked her number, unfollowed her on social media. A mutual friend mentioned that she's moved back in with her parents and is continuing with therapy. While part of me hopes she finds the help she needs, mostly I just want her out of my life for good. Reflecting on our relationship, I can see now just how toxic it really was. Sarah's jealousy and insecurity weren't just minor annoyances. They were serious red flags. In hindsight, I should have ended things long before I did. I've been doing a lot of soul searching about why I stayed with her for so long, why I tolerated behavior that I now recognize as unhealthy. I think a big part of it was a fear of being alone. Another part was this misguided belief that I could somehow make things better, that I could earn her trust if I just tried hard. And if I'm honest with myself, there was also a part of me that liked feeling needed, even if it was for all the wrong reasons. One of the hardest things to accept has been letting go of the future I once imagined. Even though I had doubts about the pregnancy, a part of me had started to think about what it might be like to be losing that possibility, only to discover it was all based on lies has been difficult. But at the same time, I feel a sense of relief. Relief that I found out the truth before it was too late. Relief that I'm no longer tied to Sarah and her manipulation. The past few weeks, I've been focusing on myself. Picked up Run Love, but Let Slip, Sarah. I'm also reading more, reconnecting with friends, and even considering taking a solo trip. Work has been a good distraction. I've thrown myself into a new project, and my boss has noticed. He's even hinted that a promotion might be on the horizon if I keep up the good work. It's nice to have something positive to focus. When it comes to dating, I'm not in a rush to jump into anything serious just yet. I know I need time to heal and rebuild my trust, but I'm also open to the idea of meeting someone new when the time feels right. This whole experience has taught me a lot about myself, about relationships, about trust. I've learned the importance of trusting your gut. If something doesn't feel right, there's probably a reason. For those who have followed my story from the beginning, thank you for your support and advice. You helped me see things more clearly when I could. If there's one takeaway from my experience, it's this: trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's incredibly difficult to repair. Don't stay in a relationship where you're constantly second guessing your partner or yourself, and when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time. Some days are tougher than others, but overall, I'm doing okay. I'm up, whatever it may. I know that whatever challenge, final update time. Thank you all for the support you've shown me throughout this crazy journey. Here's to new beginnings and brighter days ahead. Update 3. It's been about 10 months since my last update, and I honestly didn't expect to be writing another one. I thought the chapter with Sarah was well and truly closed, but life has a funny way of surprising you. After everything that went down with Sarah and discovering her betrayal, I focused on moving forward. I threw myself into work, continued therapy, and started reconnecting with my social life. Things were going well, all things considered. The promotion my boss had hinted at finally came through. I'm now leading my own team on a significant project, and it's been both challenging and rewarding. Emily and I have been working closely together, and I have to admit, there's been some flirting between us. We haven't acted on it yet. I've been cautious about mixing work and personal life, especially after everything that happened with Sarah. but the attraction is definitely. Then, about a month ago, everything took an unexpected. I was at the grocery store one evening picking up a few things for dinner when I unexpectedly ran into Robert. Yes, that Robert, Sarah, the one who revealed the truth about the baby. We both stood there for a moment, surprised by Robert asked if I wanted to grab a coffee and catch up. At first, I hesitated. Did I really want to dig up the past? Curiosity got the better. Over coffee, Robert brought me up to speed on what had been happening with Sarah. Apparently, after our confrontation, she had a complete breakdown. She quit her job, moved back in with her parents, and entered intensive therapy. Robert, feeling partly, then he dropped the bomb. Sarah had recently found out she was pregnant again, and this time it was definitely Robert's child. Robert explained that while they weren't getting back together, he was committed to co-parenting with Sarah. Hearing that stirred up a mix of emotions in me. On one hand, I felt a surge of anger. Why should she get to have a baby after everything she did? But another part of me was relieved. Relieved that it wasn't me in Robert's shoes, tied to Sarah for the rest of my life. Robert seemed genuinely excited about becoming a father. Though he admitted he had concerns about co-parenting with Sarah, given their history, he mentioned that Sarah had made some real progress in therapy, working through her trust issues and manipulative tendencies. But he wasn't letting his guard down completely. As we were about to part ways, Robert hesitated before telling, "There's something else Sarah's been asking about you. She wants to apologize in person for everything." I didn't give him an answer right away, saying I'd think about it, but making no promises. For the next few days, I couldn't shake what he'd told me. I brought it up with my therapist, trying to sort through my emotions. On one hand, I felt no obligation to see Sarah or hear her out. What she did was unforgivable, and I had every right to keep her out of my life. But a small part of me wanted apology. After a lot of reflection, I decided to go ahead and meet with Sarah. I figured it would be better to face this once and for all rather than always wondering what might have been said. I asked Robert to arrange the meeting, making it clear that this was a one-time thing. We met at a park on a Saturday afternoon. I chose a public place for the neutral ground and to avoid any potential drama. As I watched Sarah walk toward me, I noticed how different she looked. Smaller, more subdued, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She sat down on the bench next to me, keeping a respectful. For a few moments, we just sat there. Then she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I know nothing I say can change what I did," she said, her voice low, "but I need you to know how deeply sorry I am for everything, for the cheating, the lies, trying to trap you with a baby that wasn't yours. It was wrong, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Sarah then shared that she had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which shed light on, though didn't justify, some of her past actions. She spoke about the intensive therapy she'd been undergoing. She was learning to manage her emotions and insecurities in healthier ways. "I'm not telling you this to ask for your forgiveness," she said. "I know I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I understand you, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure I never treat anyone that way again." When she finished, I took a moment to collect my thoughts. I told her that while I appreciated her apology, I couldn't forgive her. Not yet. The pain was still too raw and the betrayal too deep. However, I did tell her that I hoped she would continue with her therapy and work on becoming a better person, especially now that she was going to be a mother. Sarah nodded and thanked me for listening and for agreeing to meet with her. As she stood to leave, she hesitated, then added, "I truly am happy for you. Robert told me about your promotion and about Emily. I hope it works out for you. You deserve to be." That she walked. I stayed on that bench for a long time after she left, trying to process everything. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I might have imagined. Instead, it felt like the quiet closing, final end of a chapter. In the weeks since that meeting, I've done a lot, Sarah, on our relationship, on everything that transpired. I've come to realize that while I can't forgive her actions, I can release the anger I've been carrying. It's not about excusing what she did, but about freeing myself from the weight of negative emotions that have been holding me down. As for my personal life, things have been improving. Remember how I mentioned some flirtation between Emily and me? Well, about a week after my meeting with Sarah, Emily and I finally addressed the unspoken tension. We decided to give dating a try, agreeing to keep things professional at work and be upfront with our boss to avoid any potential conflicts of interest. It's still early in my relationship with Emily, but things already feel different from anything I've experienced before. There's a level of trust and communication between us that I never had with Sarah. We're taking it one step at a time, fully aware of the complexities that come with dating a coworker. But so far, it's been a positive experience. My friends and family have been nothing but supportive of this new development in my life. Mike even joked that he saw this coming from the moment he heard about the chaos with my ex at work. My parents are just happy to see me moving forward. On the work front, everything is falling into place. The project I'm leading is progressing well, and it's rewarding to see the team come together and make strides. Watching the fruits of my labor start to take shape has been incredibly satisfying. As for Sarah and Robert, I've made a conscious decision to keep my distance. While Robert occasionally updates me, I've set boundaries and made it clear that I want to stay out of their lives. I wish them all the best, particularly for the sake of their child, but that part of my life is firmly behind me. For those who have been with me from the start of this journey, thank you. Your advice and encouragement helped me navigate some of the darkest moments, especially when I first uncovered the truth about Sarah's deception. I don't know what the future. My relationship with Emily is still in its early stages, and only time will tell where it might lead. My career is on an upward path, but I know there will be obstacles along the way. Life, a way of keeping things unpredictable. But for the first time in a long while, I'm genuinely looking forward to what's ahead. I feel like I've been given a fresh slate, a chance to apply the lessons I've learned and create a fulfilling life. This will be my final update on this chapter. It's time to close the door on the past and focus on the future. Thank you again for all your support during this roller coaster of a journey. Here's to new chapters, lessons learned, and the endless possibilities that await.